Welcome to another episode of Resortera Wave. Thank you for the views. Thank you for the watches in the last two episodes. Oscar, how's everything over there in the Boston area?
Good, good, good. It's a typical New England weather. I told you it was snowing here last week, and now we're approaching 50 degrees again.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that's
no, for us today was beautiful in the Northeast. I mean, I think what I'm hearing a lot with New Jersey is, want to see snow. We want to see snow. A lot of people are like, let's see snow. But right now, I mean, coming from Texas,
yeah.
I don't mind snow, but like, I don't mind this either. Like, this is 50 degree, 45, nice sunshine. I think it's ideal, especially for this time of the year. No, it's not because there were some days that was like dark and no sun, and to see it every now and then, it's good stuff. Um, so today's episode, we're gonna talk a little bit about the influence of the Eredivisie, Eredivisie, right?
You say better than me, yeah.
Eredivisie in the Mexican football. We'll go over the list of players that have played there, and just talked a little bit about the influence and why we think. I think after all the cases we've seen, and I want to say, in my case, since 2000,
Six
2005
ish.
that up till now, I think it's the league where we have seen a lot of flourishing from the Mexican footballer. I think a lot of growth. Um, a lot of influence in the sense of being leaders. They gain a lot of that experience. Um, I think PSV has been sort of the main club, I would say, but now Ajax is starting to lurk in now with Edson and Jorge Sanchez. Even before Lainez signed for Betis, it was well known that Ajax was interested in Lainez, no? And now the new one is Feyenoord with Santi Jimenez. But I think when you talk about Feyenoord, you gotta mention that Dennis de Close is the sporting director, and Dennis de Close, Tigres, Chivas, Mexican national teams, LA Galaxy,
Mm-hmm.
LA Galaxy represents sort of that connection of, they've always brought the Mexican talent to that team. Giovanni Dos Santos was a DP, Jonathan Dos Santos was a DP, Chicharito Hernandez was a DP, and right now, two of their youngsters that came, Efrain Alvarez plays for Mexico's national team, and Julian Araujo plays for Mexico's national team. So it is a team that it's an MLS, but it has a strong Mexican presence and Mexican influence. So we're gonna put on the screen right now the list, a list of the list. Thanks to Marca for creating this article. Makes life easier.
Mm-hmm.
The article was written by Hector Lacerri. And here it says Jiménez y Sánchez serán los mexicanos 12 y 13 en militar en la Eredivisie. So it's 13 players that have played in the Netherlands, where 5 of the 11 former players that have played there have been champions in the league.
Mm.
So it tells you a little
Crazy
bit of,
stat, to be honest.
yeah, like, and I think it influenced because they always, in PSV and Ajax, no, and it's usually that sort of that exchange, of titles. Sometimes it's PSV, sometimes it's Ajax, and right now it's looking like Feyenoord
Feyenoord.
might win it, no. But the first one was Joaquín del Olmo, Vitesse, and here it says el mediocampista fue el primero en llegar a Países Bajos. But to be honest, I don't like Países Bajos. I like Holanda, but that's a whole different story.
Yeah, I never understood it either. But yeah, Holanda, it's Holanda, Netherlands, whatever. But it's not that.
Yeah. But Leuven Hacker in 96, 97, he played 16 games, scored 4 goals. I think the name there that stands out is Leuven Hacker. Leuven Hacker coached in America. I think he brought
That's right.
in, so he's one of the first coaches, Dutch coaches, that comes to Mexico and coaches America. And I think that name is very influential. I mean, I think he's always been one of those connectors, no, indirectly, of like these clubs, if they wanted to know about Mexican players, they would go to Leuven Hacker because Leuven Hacker coached in the league. And I think Joaquín del Olmo coached in Liga MX, but I don't know where he's at right now, to be honest. I think at
To be
one
honest,
point,
He's the one that I'm least recognized on this list, Nate. I don't know if you can maybe tell a little bit more, but I just know he played there. He's just one of the lucky guys that are on that list. He's definitely the least recognizable
Yeah,
for
no,
me.
no, no, because right away and I think he is the key one, in my opinion. Maybe because it's the one that we saw, he's the one that we saw. But Carlos Salcido, in my opinion, is the player that sort of like says, you know what, it's the best investment you can do. A Mexican player, especially him, Salcido, no, ambidextrous, played mainly as a left back. Played in a generation. I remember it was a Felay, I think, was there.
He has so many
Jefferson
great stories in
Farfan,
general too. Yeah.
Edison Mendes was also in that PSV.
They had a
So
Brazilian too. I forget his name too. Do you remember? He was a Brazilian that played with Salcido. He was a monster on the team. I forget his name,
the
but
forward or goalkeeper?
I think it was a forward.
Was it Robert De Pino? Because Robert De Pino played in Mexico too, no? And he went on to play for PSV.
Maybe it was him, yeah. But I remember watching him too. He was one of the standout offensive players when I would watch Salcido's games.
So Salcido in the Netherlands, he won the Eredivisie in 2007, 2008, in the Super Cup in 2008. And then in 2010, he went to Fulham. And when PSV got Massa Rodriguez, there was a lot of doubts about Massa, no? About what type of player he was. But I think this move really shaped him into the player that he went on to become, no? After PSV, he went to Stuttgart. But I think the best Massa was the 2014 version, the one that went to the World Cup with Piojo. No, I think that's probably where he was more mature, understood his role on the field pretty well. But I think the time in PSV really made him into an all around better defender. No,
Without a doubt.
Hector Moreno, I think another special case. Because Hector played for two clubs in the Netherlands. The first one, AZ Alkmaar, was when he first arrived to Europe. And then PSV happened afterwards, no? After that 2014 World Cup. With unfortunate for him because he injured himself and perhaps prevented the possibility to move to a bigger club and in one of the top 5 leagues in Europe. But then he moved to PSV and things went pretty well, no? Always a starter, inamovible. And the quality, no, of him really, I think with Moreno, I think what was special, he learned how to speak the language in English, and also
Yeah, I was gonna say it was the off, especially because you said he was also with those group of players with Gio and Villa, where right after the Under-17 World Cup, if not right after, it was maybe a year later because I think because he was under 18, he had to wait till he was 18 to actually get over there. But like you said, he was able to learn English. He was able to learn how to live by himself and just grow mentally as a young man
yeah.
compared
And
to
look, I think what's special about him also is he won the league with AZ Alkmaar. Which when you
Louis
see it
Van
right
Gaal
now,
with him.
I think Louis Van Gaal was the manager.
I think it was.
Yeah.
It's interesting that he got to work with him that young.
Yeah. No, and considering how strict, no, Louis Van Gaal is as a manager,
That probably
and
helped him a lot.
that helped him a lot. I mean, there was no playing around or no time to be wasteful, no, which tends to happen a lot.
Thinking about it too, Nayib, he was probably the most disciplined from that Under-17 championship, right? Thinking about it, if you look at those careers.
Yeah.
Aldrete has had a good professional career too for me.
No,
But
and when you say discipline, I think throughout, no, he was consistent in the discipline because, for example, Vela, as he grew older, he was more disciplined. But when he was younger, he was crazy, no? And the same with Giovanni, no? Giovanni was never able
to
to
be
sort
fair,
of.
they had different star powers too. Porque ya sabes, he's like, he's the star compared to Moreno. He's the defense. You know what I mean? It's a different
Yeah.
dynamic, but nonetheless.
So another one, Andrés Guardado with PSV. He arrived in 2014, primero como préstamos del Valencia y luego ya compraron su carta. So he arrived on loan to PSV, and then he became a legend, winning the Eredivisie 2015 and 2016. I think Guardado owes a lot to PSV because before PSV, there was doubts that he was going to continue in Europe. He plays in the World Cup pretty well with Piojo in 2014. Let it be known that he plays because Chapito Montes got hurt. If Chapito Montes doesn't get hurt, I don't
Maybe,
know
yeah,
if Guardado
maybe. Who
doesn't play.
knows?
But I think he sort of resurrects his career in PSV. No, I think the manager was Diego Cocu, who played in Barcelona. And I think that influenced him, especially in the midfield, no, and becoming this
That's when
different
he
type
started to
of
become
player.
more an interior player, holding mid.
So I think when you think about successful stories, we have Salcido and we have Guardado and Moreno too. That's three players already that you go to the Netherlands and they probably know who they are, no, pretty well, especially in the Eindhoven area.
Without a
Um,
doubt.
and here comes cases that Ulises Avila with Vitesse. Um, he arrives there because he was owned by Chelsea, and Chelsea would send players to Vitesse to sort of get acclimated, no. And it was on and off, no. It wasn't
It wasn't horrible, but it wasn't too good either.
yeah,
His
to
time
go
there.
to the point of, for example, of him excelling, no. Then he ended up excelling in Australia, I believe, or New Zealand, or
Yeah,
um
Australia, I think. Yeah,
so I mean, it wasn't the best for Ulises, but a top talent. He got recognized because of a good U20 World Cup performance.
he's one of
um
those what if players. Because I remember watching the youth tournament. He was like him, Tecatito, Ispiraqueta. For me, were like when I saw them at the youth level, like you could just tell they were just levels above their age group. But making that transition to the first team
yeah.
cost them a little bit.
And then Tecatito, no, you mentioned Tecatito. He went to Twente. This Twente side was interesting, no, because it also had Sillej, I believe. Um, and I remember when he left, there was a lot of
Controversy. Yeah,
controversy. He left
went through
too
the back
young,
door.
in back door. But it worked out for him. He started playing. He gained minutes. He got in shape. He got the debut with the senior national team, and then Porto came and bought him from Twente. But I think it was the best stepping stone, especially to start his process in Europe, and I think it worked fine for him. Look, hopefully he's back soon from that injury that he had. I feel like he'll be back probably in the next 2 weeks or so. Um, and then right below him is Uriel Antuna, who I think similar case to Davila, no, owned by a Premier League club. As crazy as it sounds, Antuna was owned by the City Group. They send him down there to Groningen, and things just didn't go his way. No, I think he was one of those players that you would have expected a little bit more, considering his capabilities. No, a lot of speed, you know, um, but he just couldn't make the cut, basically.
Definitely. Yeah. I think right now, if he was in the mentality that he is right now with Cruz Azul, a bit more maturity, he probably would have thrived. But I think he was just too young, trying to, you know, get accustomed to Europe and have different responsibilities that you do at that age.
Yeah. And then next two, again, PSV comes to the picture. Chucky Lozano, Guti. I think two of Pachuca's greatest, canteranos
Graduates,
or graduates, and they make the similar jump, no? Have they been different? Of course, first of all, there's different positions. I think Chucky was explosive right away when he arrived over there. I mean, he felt right in place, became a constant scorer. And with Guti, it has taken a while, in understanding his role in the team. I think there's serious competition in the midfield, and I think that's been a tough for him because you go from a setting in Pachuca where he was the captain,
captain, the main guy.
and then you go to PSV where the language barrier is a big deal here. I think also, maybe Chucky didn't really need the language because he was just so special, no, and he really understood breaking into space and creating his chances and scoring, no.
I
But
think the
once,
coach is a difference too because I think Chucky also had Felipe, right? And he spoke Spanish at least. I don't think Eric
Yeah.
I didn't have a Spanish speaking coach.
Or maybe, yeah, maybe it was
But to your what you just said too, I think I did see an interview with Guti where he mentioned where like the topic of learning English, it wasn't a priority for him either,
yeah, and
unfortunately.
I think that's a mistake, no, a big
Compared to
mistake
Edson, next on the list,
compared to
because
Edson, who
you've
arrived
seen
right
him.
away and mixed through. I mean, I think also Edson, to be honest, one of the reasons he succeeded so well, he succeeded, has had success because he's still there. People like Lisandro Martinez were very, very important. Lisandro had already been there, so there was a connection. Having that face of Spanish speaking, but also understanding your role that you have to learn. There was a lot of pressure on Edson because it's a big deal, that first Mexican footballer in Ajax. Ajax hadn't looked at the Mexican market before. It was always PSV that it was like, okay, Salcido worked, Massa worked, Guardado worked. So there's a history in PSV that is very, very evident. And I think in Ajax is barely building, no? And it's been directly with Ajax and America, and in the sense that Edson leaves America, Jorge Sanchez leaves America, and there was a chance that Diego Lainez might have left from America to Ajax, but it didn't happen. But I think props to Edson, no, because it hasn't been easy, and of course, our viewers probably already seen the critiques from like Wesley Snyder. Those are Wesley is an important player in Ajax recent history, as a so that criticism is not easy to deal with, and
And
he
it's not
has
the
to.
first time he gets criticized in that aspect as well. But
Yeah, yeah. And so we talked about Jorge and Edson, and I think the guy that I think everyone's talking about right now is Santi, and how efficient he has been. Um, I personally, I knew, I'm not gonna say I knew this was gonna happen, but I think there was a lot of signs from his raw talent that once put in a scenario like the one he's in Feyenoord, that he was gonna be able to sort of take in the moment and produce, no. And I know there was a lot of doubts before. I mean, there was like, because like you said, in Cruz Azul, it's not like he was an absolute starter, but I think there was a lot of details, especially his circle, his family circle with his dad and his mom. Chaco is an impressive person, no, they're very, very down to earth and that kind of thing. So I think that influenced him, and I think the physical capacities, he already had them in Cruz Azul, but now I think he's just
elevated
building
them,
them,
yeah.
yeah, elevating them, and I think the sky is the limit really for him and Feyenoord at the moment.
No, 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 without a doubt, Nayib. I mean, like I said, I was able to like witness his debut and everything closely when he debuted against Tijuana, I believe. And usually, especially in Liga MX, correct me if I'm wrong, Nayib, sometimes the kids in the league, especially if they're 17, 18, they go in a little bit raw, they're a little bit nervous, sometimes they don't make the right decisions. It's more like really quick for them. They want to do as quickly as possible. But
Yeah.
the fact Santi, you just saw him plays like his link up play was impeccable for the age of 18. The way he was doing at Cruz Azul, and just his decision making, not to always rush things as well, which was like I think the European clubs also saw that.
No,
But like you said, that helps from having a father who is as smart as Chaco as well. Too.
no, no,
And
and then another thing. Look, I said it back last year, no, but it was a big injustice that he wasn't part of the World Cup squad. Considering the level that he's in right now, no one can see the future, but you could tell that there was something special with Santi going on, that it was just hard to understand why he was left out. But I think the way he responded, or the way that he carried himself throughout that whole unfortunate event, was very, very amazing. No,
mature,
very,
yeah.
very mature, respectful. He never threw, shade to anything. I was always supporting Mexico, and I think he's the type of dude that understands that if everything goes the right way, he is destined to be the starter for El Tri in 2026, no? Because there's no competition. And we'll see if JJ Macias maybe recuperates and retains a better level. But I think if he's healthy, he keeps this momentum going, he'll be untouchable, and I think he knows that pretty
Hopefully,
well.
no injuries. Knock on wood.
Yeah, hopefully no injuries. And that's I think a quick resumen of what the Revedise does. I mean, I know that there's been, the no era penal situation was very, very, difficult to a difficult pill to swallow. That game in particular, I think, is the closest El Tri probably has been to the quarterfinals. But it just goes to show you how much that football in particular has influenced Mexican football, through the fact of how successful the Mexican footballers have been in that league. I mean, the evidence was there in the last 20 minutes.
No, without a doubt. And then it just goes to show as well, like I mean, it's without a doubt the country of the Netherlands is the country that bets on the Mexican the most, right? Without a doubt.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
even though it's just particularly one club, but
No, and
like
then
you
we'll
said,
see. Look, because for example, right now, Orbelin
Portugal's up
Pineda.
there now with the Porto situation as well.
Yeah, Portugal's up there too. But look, right now with Orbelin Pineda, he's la está rompiendo en Grecia. I understand that tomorrow in the market, this is all supposition, and maybe it won't happen this way. But the Turkish player that Feyenoord has, I don't know his name right now, but he's a midfielder. He's a captain. If Benfica sells to Chelsea, Enzo Fernandez, I think the Turkish guy goes to Benfica. If that happens, I think Orbelin Pineda does become an option for Feyenoord for the summer, not in this market in particular. But if that comes to happen, I would rather see Orbelin go to Feyenoord than to go to, I don't know, Spain again, or England. And I don't think England's gonna happen, or Germany. But like I think the best thing that can happen to Orbelin right now is to go to one of those top three in the Netherlands, and just keep doing what he's doing in Greece. And then I think it would still be influential to the national team. No, and I think as a footballer he will still keep progressing. I just hope that what he's doing in Greece right now won't sort of like dissipate if he goes to another club and again starts on the bench. I think the best thing that can happen to Orbelin is to move on from that club, but go to a club where you're gonna play, and that could potentially be, heck, it could even be Turkey, to be honest. It could be Galatasaray or Fenerbahce or Besiktas, one of those teams. But you know that he's gonna play. Is it gonna be a better level than Spain? No, no, no.
It's a tricky one, yeah.
It's a tricky one though, no. But
No,
hopefully, I
no.
think I think Orbelin is destined for the Netherlands, to be honest.
Yeah, I think in a way you kind of see like the Guardado similarities there,
Nah,
where maybe Orbelin is not going to be an attacking midfielder. He's not Diago Aspas from Celta, right? I don't think he's ever going to replace him, which I
yeah,
think that's what they tried to do, which was a huge mistake in the first place, in my opinion. But I think Orbelin's going to have to be someone who plays out wide, or someone who's going to play that in the center mid, but doing more of the dirty work in a
yeah,
sense. Because I think he does have the engine in him. Physically, I think he's, as he gets older, he starts, doing more importance on the gym and nutrition. I think you're starting to see that a little bit more as well. But yeah, and I think what the thing is too, Nate, with I guess the way how the Mexican game kind of deals with Mexican soccer and football, like you hear a lot of the media and fans say that why are you going to go to the Netherlands or Portugal, a league that's, you know, at the same level or not even that higher than Liga MX, right? There's a huge big discussion,
yeah,
but like you said, there's just something about at the end of the day, Europe is just another stepping stone. It's just another level, whether the same league or not. I mean, I've made the comparison with Greece, with Mexico, which I think is totally different, but it's another another conversation. But you can't compare the Netherlands to like a Greece in that aspect, or Armenia, or what was this kid from who's playing left back in Genk otra vez?
Arteaga.
Arteaga. hmm Because the Netherlands had such a big staple point in the history of football in general. I mean, they basically the reason why Spain has a World Cup, the reason why Barcelona of 2008 of Pep's going to be remembered one of the best teams in the history of the
Yeah,
game,
yeah.
and a team and a country that probably deserves a World Cup, a country that deserves one, and then people forget like players like Phenomenal started his career there with PSV too, so like I think it's just a great stepping stone where you get to learn a lot of like the tactical and environment of Europe at a place where you don't need instant results like this compared to like in Spain
Yeah,
with
no,
Betis,
and
which
at the end of the
was
day, you'll get the European competition, whether that's
mm-hmm,
Conference League or Europa League or
Europa.
Champions League. And I think that's important. The changing of lifestyle, it's radical, the change of lifestyle. Because when you're in Mexico and you're a big star, everything is on the table for you. You're untouchable. I mean, look how Alexis Vega has been treated in Chivas throughout, I want to say the last year and a half. Like a rock star, man. And it's and he goes to PSV. It's starting from zero. He's not the rock star. So I think you got to put those things in perspective. It's like for Belín Pineda, winning the league with Chivas, winning the league with Cruz Azul, where he was winning good money, and then start all over in Celta. It was a big, big change, no? And now, in Greece, I think it helps that he's with Matias Almeida, who already knows him from his Chivas days. But I think the main thing that really, really influences here is the changing of lifestyle, the changing of your training, your day to day. That whole idea of like the way that training happens in Europe is way different than in Mexico. There's a
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
relaxation type of thing. And that's what all the players say. It's a change of dynamics of how you treat a training session. Um, in Europe, you're in a period of time of like you got a game on Wednesday and then you got a game on the weekend, and it's like that for a good chunk of the year. No, in Mexico, it's like viernes a viernes usually, or it's
and then there's no relegation either, and then
yeah, so all those pressures.
yeah,
But we'll see how it evolves. We'll see how the season ends. In the Netherlands, it looks like Feyenoord might win. But like I said, I mean, if they take several players out of Feyenoord, like the Turkish midfielder, it could complicate things a little bit. Ajax is, in the process
of a rebuild
of a
essentially.
rebuild,
They
basically.
destroyed their whole team, and that's probably gonna leave in the summer, so that's gonna be
Yeah, so we'll
interesting.
see how that goes. But yeah, I mean, in other news, real quick, to touch a little bit of, or to talk a little bit before we end this episode, Oscar. Julián Araujo to Barcelona. That's one of the rumors. On loan to Barça B, and also training with the first team, maybe playing with the first team. We'll see about that, but it will be special, no? To have a Mexican player once again in Barcelona.
Oh no, without a doubt, Nayib. And then the reconnection with Rafa, so you'd be able to guide him in a sense as to what to expect. But yeah, it'd be nice for we could see a Mexican player in one of those like top five marketable teams of the world. It gives the younger kids like more hope again, rather than just looking back at the Rafa Marquez days, Chicharo days when he was at Madrid.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens. I mean, I think the next hours are going to be very, very important for that to happen. It's worth mentioning that Julián Araujo was in Barça Academy. I don't know if it was, I think it was Arizona. And a lot of players have come out from that system and have gone on to play in MLS and so forth and USL. And Julian started there and then he moved to Galaxy. So I think I'm not going to say that's a major component, but I think that influences a little bit the possibility of him
Yeah,
landing a deal.
it's not the first time he's been linked to, right? I think
Yeah,
last summer he was linked as well.
yeah. And we'll see what happens there. The second rumor, and this is from Alejandro Gomez from Diario AS Mexico. he basically suggests in his recent column that Bielsa is once again a big candidate to take over El Tri's coaching position. Um, Bielsa, I think, is also considered for the U.S. coaching position. So there's going to be, we'll see who has the better options or the better contract. Or I find it very, very surprising, though, that after everything that has been said and done, that Bielsa's back in the picture, and not only in the picture, but it looks like there's serious, serious intentions in the next 48 hours for him to sign the contract with the Mexican national team.
Yeah, Nayib. I mean, it'll be. I mean, I don't know. I am excited about it, but it's one of those things. I'm not gonna believe it until I see, an official tweet from the federation with Bielsa holding the Mexican national team shirt like this,
And
putting on the jacket.
Bielsa. This is the thing with Bielsa that's going to be very, very interesting.
Yeah, it'll
I
be really interesting.
Bielsa won't care about hierarchies. No, Bielsa is going to be very, very strict. I think Osorio is basically someone who his biggest idol was Bielsa. We had Osorio for 4 years. Then Martino was coached by Bielsa. So even with El Tri doing all the mess that that they have done, but they have followed a similar path in terms of the type of coach that they want. So after all these years, let it be known that Bielsa has already coached in Mexico, and I think that's important to note. So he knows it, and he's gone to Cancun to give talks to los directivos before. Well connected with the Pachuca people, with Jesus Martinez. I think if he does become the coach, every game is going to be interesting because he's going to mix it up with the youth. He really won't care about hierarchies. I think a lot of things will be done his way. No, I think he will have a lot of control.
For better or for worse, too, Nayib.
For better or for worse. But I think right now it's just going to be interesting to see like how long he's going to be the contract, how long the contract is. Why did he pick Mexico if he does pick Mexico? And we'll see. I mean, I think if he picked Mexico, probably means that he's going to live in Cancun, to be honest. Who wouldn't want to live in Cancun and have a nice a nice check and stuff every month? But I was reading an article in the Athletic about his ways with Leeds, and it seems that when you get Bielsa, you say, okay, I'll pay Bielsa $8 million a year, but like that $8 million a year also includes all his coaching staff. So like he is the guy. The 8 million goes to Bielsa, but then Bielsa is the guy that sort of is responsible of cashing each one of his coaching staff members. There was a lot of talk with Martino that he had a big coaching staff. So I don't know how they're going to react when they see that Bielsa will probably also have a big coaching staff, no? I don't know, maybe 5 or 6. But if El Tri wants to get Bielsa at any cost, we'll find out, no? How the contract is going to look.
Yeah, Nayib. I mean, just following his career in general, because if anyone who's just a fan of like the big guys nowadays, like the Peps, the Artetas now, just anyone who really likes this modern football, Bielsa's the guy. He's the common denominator of all that, which is really interesting. La Volpe, just all these guys that that come from that mind in a sense, and to bring that to the Mexican national team in a sense with they'll take no BS, like you said, no hierarchy. And when I mean better for worse, Nayib, I mean you might see the Mexican national team get some goleadas on them. We saw it with his Leeds team, we saw it with his Bilbao team in Spain. So, but it all be at a cost, and then that hopefully pay off in the end. So hopefully the kids that learn from if those heavy defeats, when they come to a Copa America quarterfinal, let's say, or around a 16 match, the World Cup, or an important group match, that's where the players, everything that they've gathered from all those matches, and mistakes and all that, that's where they'll be able to finally pay it off in those important key matches, which hopefully will be the case with the national team and all the resources that they have.
I think I'm gonna say it, if Bielsa signs with the Mexican national team, it will be the biggest surprise in the history of Mexican football.
Really,
I don't think this was ever in my opinion. I never thought it would happen.
how
That
optimistic would you be about the national team? Like maybe like we can maybe win something. Not
I
necessarily
think
win something, but
I think
could revolutionize it.
I wouldn't say win because that
He
depends
doesn't
a
have
lot
a
on the
good trophies as well too.
yeah, that also depends on the talent that's available. But I think the team will really shine. It will have a better character than the last two processes. You look, the Osorio was well, but I think it still lacks something. It still lacks something. And I think with Bielsa, it's gonna be probably the best version of Mexico's national team since
Since La Volpe
La
probably.
Volpe, probably. And this is it, I think Pachuca will be very influential. Santos will be very influential because there's a lot of talent in those teams that, one of the players that really caught my eye from the U20s that are not going to the Olympics is this Mariscal kid, the midfielder, um, from Santos. That's the type of player that reminds me of, that can do big things because he has a tall, lanky body, knows what to do with the ball. And I think if Bielsa gets that player from a very young age and molds him, into a capable midfielder, that's those are the little things that Bielsa could possibly do. No, it's how do you mold Artiaga? How do you make him a better a fullback? How do you make
You think
Jorge
he pushes
Sanchez a better
Betson
fullback?
back to the center back if he gets the job?
I think so. Yeah, I think Bielsa will be more open to the idea of the back line of three, with Edson and Montes included, and I think Johan Vasquez might be part of the mix. Um, but it depends really, because even Gallardo can be a back line of three, but that's crazy thinking still. But that's another thing, what he does with Gallardo, because Gallardo is technically one of the experienced ones now. He's not one of the youngsters anymore. Already two World Cups in his back, constantly playing with Monterrey. How do you make him a better player? I think that's one of the jobs that Bielsa would have to do, because he is physically and technically, he does have certain things that are interesting. No, it's just the finishing touches.
It'd be interesting what he does with the goalkeeper situation because, like I said, hierarchy. If that's the case, I think he writes off Ochoa completely. But then we don't have a goalie in our systems right now that suits to what Bielsa wants, which is it would be really interesting. Like who we don't. I can't think of a single one, even decent.
No, it would come down to just being a shot stopper. No, um, but we'll find out.
But they
No.
would force the keeper to play out from the back the way he wants. I mean, you saw it with the kid from Leeds. I forget his name, but you could just see because I watched his leads a lot, and you could just see the goalkeeper. He was not accustomed to playing out from the back, and he forced him every game. He's decent now, pero you
Yeah.
could just see he was not good with it. So it'd be interesting if he's gonna force Ochoa just because he's the best shot stopper, or Acevedo maybe. He's okay with the feet, but like you said, I think I'd probably be most. I've been in the most emotionally invested with the national team since I was a kid. To be honest, I think I'd probably be back to the. I care about the national team more
No,
than
that
Cruz
that's the
Azul.
thing. Because if you watch this show, I mean, we talked about Ambris, we talked about Tuca Ferretti, but when we talked about those managers, it was disregarding this whatsoever. Like there was no chance that Bielsa will coach El Tri. But now with these rumors, there is some surprise factor that it could potentially happen. No? And if it does happen, it does change the panorama of things. It does, like what you said. You're more invested. You're like, oh, you want to see what's going to happen. You look forward to it just to see what he's going to change, or how he's going to talk to the media. I think he's a sensei, no? Like he has been all over the place. That he has this sort of wisdom that is untouchable. I mean, he's like you said. I mean, Pep always talks raves about him.
Pochettino, I didn't mention him.
Arteta, Pochettino. I mean, it's insane amount of
A lot of
coaches.
Spanish football in general. So
So we'll find out in the next 48 hours or maybe in a week if this becomes true. And if it does,
when
we'll
is that
talk.
actually? Do you know? Because didn't they say they were going to come
So
out
so
with
they'll
like the
talk. They'll
slate of
talk.
the structure and everything
They'll
as
talk
well?
tomorrow, Tuesday. We're recording this on a Monday, January 30th. So they'll be on the press tomorrow on Tuesday. Um, but that will be like a review and whatnot. I mean, there
I
won't
thought it was like
be.
structure thing as well, but
I
good
think
to
they'll
know.
present the new sporting director, which is Ares de Parga, who was with Pumas and now was with Querétaro recently. Um, so we'll see about that. And but I think the main one that everyone wants to know if Bielsa is actually a legit possibility. So we'll find out soon. But I think these last minutes were interesting, talking about how Bielsa will probably, thinking ahead a little
You know
bit. But
why too? Because like we said, we mentioned the Piojos de Ambris. We can kind of picture what their national team would most likely be. Because with Bielsa, I feel like he would just rip it apart, right? It seems like compared to with the Nachos, the Jimmys, Piojo, we kind of get a sense of what their 11 would be and who the main guys are going to be and what young players they would bring. Bielsa is going to be like he'll flip the board upside down. It'll be crazy.
yeah, and it would be if Bielsa does take over, his first games will be in March, in the Nations League. So, and right away he has the Gold Cup, and then next year the Copa America, no, 2024, which I think will be interesting as well. I mean, the 2016 Copa America Centenario in the U.S. doesn't bring good memories. So let us hope that this one, with hopefully Bielsa, it changes a little bit, no?
No, no. Again, as
With
always, more
with,
questions than answers.
with Julian Araujo in Barcelona, Montes playing constantly, Edson probably in the Premier League. It's not a bad team if you think about it. Orbelin in Eredivisie, maybe with Feyenoord. Um,
I wish we could just fast forward from like
Santi,
right to the next
Santi,
episode and so when they
Santi playing in Brighton, maybe, or somewhere in the Premier League already. It doesn't look that bad. I think that's a
right,
good
right.
way to end the Resortera wave. I mean, look, we're optimistic. It's the first time we've been optimistic about the national team in ages. Let us leave it like that and hope for the best. Thank you, Oscar, for your time, and we'll chat next week.
Thank you, guys.